very much for coming along. I really appreciate the fact that you've engaged both in the interviews that I've done with you, and John, thanks for stepping in. Sorry, John. Andy, thank you for stepping in for John.
Substitute, indeed.
Really appreciate the candid conversations that we had, the openness that you shared in terms of your journeys, the challenges, as well as how you kind of navigated some of those, and that hopefully will come out in some of the conversation that we'll have during today. I am a little bit nervous, so I think that's just worth acknowledging. I'd rather label it and just say that's where I'm at. So if you're feeling a little bit nervous, it's okay. But we've got a cool venue. I wanted to create a space that was like just a different type of conversation and a different space to share kind of like some of our journeys, and create space for people to be curious about each other's journey. So I don't want to necessarily own the floor with questions. If you find something that somebody else has said quite intriguing, or you want to explore it a bit, please do. Obviously our focus is around business development, and the sort of Doncaster economy, and growing that with your business or between businesses. So we have a mix of businesses as well as educational institutions, as well as the creative arts here in the room. One thing I would say as well, don't make assumptions about the people that are sitting in front of you. There's a lot more underneath the skin of everybody's lives that you could ever imagine. So again, be curious and ask us questions. I'd like to thank Mitch for giving us the space to do this and funding this opportunity. We've had some conversations over the last sort of 6-12 months building to what this is, and it's only through your openness and your ability to kind of convince the council that this could be something cool to do, to draw out a different type of conversation that will go alongside the strategy work that Mitch is doing. Mitch, I don't know if you want to share any thoughts or thinking around that, or you want to just go, no, I'm done? Or...
No, I mean, just a massive thank you to everyone for kind of participation and stepping in at the last minute on kind of the blogs and conversations, interviews type you did at Kurt. You know, for us, it's something where, you know, really trying to celebrate, one, actually the diversity of what Doncaster has to offer. I don't think we're very good at that, especially the council, appreciating, recognising that and celebrating that, and that's something Lee and I, so I work in Lee Tillman's team at the council, really wanted to be able to celebrate. For me, equally though, this is about, you know, maybe some challenge or conversations, you know, stuff we can take away at the council to kind of go, actually, you know, some really good ideas came out, and that's something where maybe that's our role to help kind of organisations and individuals flourish. And then finally, for me, I think the good thing to come out of this is, you know, hopefully inspiring that kind of next generation of individuals around a round table, maybe in 10, 20 years' time. So, no, just massive thank you for everyone's honesty, time, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you. I want to add to Mitch, one thing I have to change in my mindset is when Mitch talks about next generation, I think we need to also not just think about young people. So my business is a second life, I suppose, rather than something that I started out in. So this is something that occurred in my sort of mid-30s. So when we say next generation, it might be people that in the 30s and 40s are going, I'm transitioning, I'm going to go from employment to self-employment, or I'm going to go from this type of self-employment opportunity to that. So that's something that we want to be able to kind of like consider in this. But again, we have representation from the college here that can sort of give an idea about, well, what does that demographic look like? And where is the opportunity for the returner to education, who's going to use education as the footing to move into employment. So I've got all your blogs printed off. I had read through them, and I've sort of highlighted stuff that are really interesting to me, and I'm going to see where they kind of link between people's stories and use those. So if you see me kind of like going through these, it's simply that. And also Mitch has given us some questions that we'd like to sort of explore, but we'll just start really kind of like, I suppose, softly and positively with what we believe, I suppose, is good about Doncaster. I'm going to ask, actually, I don't know where we refer to, is it whether we go with Andrew or Robbo during this, and Naomi. Also, what I'd like to say is, instead of we go around the table introducing each other, at the first time you speak, if you just say who you are and who you work for, and we'll get that on camera, on one of the cameras, and then we'll just go straight into it, and then the next person to speak, just say who you are and where you're from. So, Robbo and Naomi, you know.
Yeah, Robbo, KUDOS-QA. And obviously...
Well, it's Naomi, but Nibs from KUDOS-QA. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Donny. Yeah, we love Donny, actually. I never thought I'd actually be up and living in the north, coming from the south, and living in Yorkshire. But I think for us, you know, the main reason why we came up here was opportunity for people, not just young people, but people of all ages from 16 to 50, to get into an industry, you know, that they're passionate about. and I think that was really important for us. Same as our investors, we've got 4 investors behind us. There's 2 main ones that, bi-weekly we meet, and the other 2 are silent, but, our goals are like opportunity for people. And again, we get a lot of young people from our industry, obviously, because, it is gaming, but, there is a range and there's a diverse amount of different people with different, we call them abilities, not disabilities, with Asperger's or autism, dyslexia, anxiety, social anxiety, oh my God, the list goes on. Yeah. So for us, it's about putting on those people because they do have a hidden talent. And actually our office is quite, we have a lot of people with those abilities, right?
Yeah. Well, they have abilities that, you don't have, or I don't have, or you guys don't have, So, like you say, you were talking about diversity in Doncaster. So, we feel that we bring that at KUDOS, and everyone just gets on with a job,
It's not
Our ethos is work hard, play hard, and treat people as you wish to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that when they come on board. And I think, those of you that have obviously visited KUDOS, is, you'll see it's testament to those key values, I think.
Yeah, it's not a normal office.
It's definitely not a
Definitely
normal office.
not a normal office. Well, you know that.
Yeah.
Who's been there, again, like Nib says, it's not normal. We make it nice and relaxed. Let people have freedom. Yeah. That's how we get the best out of people. But actually, everyone that we actually take on board, we might have taken on about 170 people.
It's more than that now. It's nearly 190.
Is that what it was?
The count is now.
So maybe 190 people that we've touched on in Donny, that we've got into an industry that they're passionate about. Because the games industry is one of the most difficult industries to get into. If you put films and music together, the game industry outsells films and music as an entertainment sector. So it is that big. So whereas in the early 90s, when I got into it, it was quite easy, whereas like now, it's so, the quality's gone up so high and everyone wants to do it. It's really difficult to get into. So that's where we're really good at, because whether you're academic or not, whether you've gone to university or college, or whether you've done this before or not, we will look at anyone or anybody, because if you applied in our industry with CVs, you wouldn't actually get a look in. You'd just end up on this no pile. But that's where the talent sits. That's what we pick up on. And, we've set up academies before, to teach people how to do this professionally. Again, we've working with the Harrison College, setting up helping with a QA course there for games testing. But, even like KUDOS, what it means, I think that's important. We always say that's our question always to everybody, like the name of your business, like why is it called that? Because that's what we always feel that's really important.
It is.
Like KUDOS, obviously it's KUDOS-QA, but it stands like...
Well, but there is more of a story to it, which is, what we're going to call our business, QA, okay, what's this going to do? And actually, it was born out of a trip to Doncaster from King's Cross. This gentleman here, Robbo, was asleep on the train, and all of a sudden I went, I've got it. He was like, whoa, you've woken me up. But I go, I've got it, KUDOS. Because it's, it is the pinnacle. It's been prestigious and being the best at what you can be. So then it flowed off the tongue. KUDOS-QA was born. Yeah. And then, like Andy said, that there's the name, but then there's more behind that name. And for us, it was important to convey that. So the K in KUDOS stands for knowledge. The U stands for being unique, because we feel that we are unique, obviously. D is diverse in lots of different ways. The O is the resonating part of us, which is opportunity, which is why we came to the north and built KUDOS. And the S is skill. So combined, provides, well, we say the best in QA. It's important that we have more to us.
We set this up at the most difficult time as well, 2019, and then come January, Feb, that's when the pandemic hit. And even our investors went, we're going to shut this down. We're like, what, you can't do this. And we were working, so we built KUDOS from our kitchen down south, working 24 hours, because what else were we going to do? So actually it was the perfect time, the pandemic, because it allowed us to put loads of hours and do all the marketing and everything to obviously get this up and running. So the pandemic actually opened a lot of doors for us as a business too. So rather than these big vendors that you can't, it's really hard to get in with, big publishers, they were all shutting down around the world. And we were like, wow, we still ran KUDOS. The HQ, we kept it open during the pandemic. We didn't shut it. And we couldn't do it remotely. Our sort of profession you can't do it, security and stuff like that.
So you've since then you've built obviously relationships with other businesses and institutions in Doncaster, one of them being Harrison College. I'm just thinking if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts around opportunities or what Doncaster brings.
So I'm Gemma Peebles, CEO of Harrison College. So I started in 2019, same as Robbo. So I was a teacher and saw an opportunity in Doncaster for a different way of approaching education. I believe the education system is broken generally. It doesn't fit all of the young people that we serve in Doncaster, but also nationally. I don't know if you agree, John, but the system doesn't suit all learners. A lot of young people are pushed into different education providers that don't work for them, and then they don't succeed and they're set up to fail, and then they get into a system where we've got generational people on benefits, which is unfortunately what's happening in Doncaster. So Harrison College is to target a very niche group of young people, particularly that suit KUDOS-QA. So they're very diverse young people that have autism, social emotional needs, social anxieties, but the focus of our college is all around employability and getting into work. So there's an opportunity in Doncaster with the number of industries that are in Doncaster. And with the Chamber, they had a focus at the time on engaging with business and Doncaster Promise and bringing businesses to partner with education. There was a huge opportunity and a gap in the market from a business perspective, but also for young people and learners. So with the college, we partner and work with about 40 businesses at the moment, whether it be internships, workshops, doing site visits last week. We did 2 weeks of National Careers Week, so we visited 20 different businesses. Robbo has already mentioned we've got an academy starting to get up off the ground. So with KUDOS, so we run KUDOS as part of KUDOS' training. We run with our students. So we've got a TA that understands game design, and actually I'm worried about him leaving and going to work for KUDOS because that's what he wants to do. But he is training students in college, and we've got all the systems in college so that then they can go and do the play test with KUDOS and hopefully do an internship with them and be taken on. We had a successful intern with you last year, didn't we, who did really well. He was offered a job with KUDOS, but he turned it down. Well, he just didn't, the last little hurdle he couldn't get over, and that was his choice. But the partnerships in Doncaster are working particularly well. We've got huge companies like Polypipe, companies like KUDOS, we've got sole traders. So we had a lady that managed property. She was on her own, but she spent 2 days a week for a year mentoring one of our learners, and now he works for St Ledger Homes in an apprenticeship scheme, and is absolutely flying. But it's a commitment from Doncaster business that makes us successful, because they then work with our students, and hopefully they give back to businesses like KUDOS, because hopefully the employees of those businesses learn from our young people and learn about different aspects of diversity, and actually that there can be abilities and you can use those things, and they've got hidden skills that you don't actually know are there. We learn things from them all the time. They come to me with solutions to things. I don't know was a problem, but they'll give it to me and go, yep, great, fantastic.
Can I ask then, so, well, I'm going to move it across to John, just because the comment there that we had about the education system being kind of maybe not as we need it to be, and it'd be interesting from your perspective, John, maybe a reference point around Doncaster, but also how is it that you're maybe approaching things that it can be more of what young people need?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. John Rees, I'm the Chief Executive at DN Colleges Group, which obviously includes Doncaster College and University campus here in Doncaster and some other institutions elsewhere. I mean, there's a couple of things. I think how the education system gets evaluated and judged and recognised in terms of what's good and less good is, I think, a really outmoded and unhelpful way of evaluating the effectiveness of an educational institution. And I don't know that it'll ever happen, but I think it should, that the acid test or the litmus test of the effectiveness of any educational institution should be the extent to which it prepares its students for success in the next stage of their kind of life, career, whatever. Obviously economically that's about career, but it's about preparation for the whole of the rest of their lives. So actually, if anyone was to offer me and said, well, we'll dispense with Ofsted and grades and qualification outcomes and achievement rates and kind of exam results, and we'll judge the effectiveness of institutions on the extent to which they get people to where they want to go, I'd take that every day of the week, because I think fundamentally that's the job of education. There's another kind of thought which kind of picks up on something you said, Kurt, which is just I'm conjuring with at the moment, because I'm relatively new in post, as colleagues may know. So I've been in this role for about 6 months, and kind of one of my main jobs in that kind of initial period is to think seriously about the future and kind of how the college positions itself and what we should be preparing ourselves to do for the long term. And when I've been thinking about that and trying to kind of engage different audiences, you know, students, staff, parents, other kind of strategic partners and others, the first thing I sort of think about and then talk to people about is a student leaving Doncaster College today. How long do you think they're going to be in the labour market? You know, and what's their retirement date? And I don't know that for sure, but it's going to be 50 plus years from the day in which they leave the institution. And I think that's quite a difficult thing to wrap your head around and assume that everything we do in the 2 or 3 year period whilst they're learning is going to equip them for the next 50 years, particularly around the qualification, you know, the specific technical and academic and, if you like, the occupational things they learn for day one. It's the rest of the stuff that equips them to have a career in the long term where they can adapt, potentially change career, can relearn, you know. And if we want to kind of get a bit of a lens on just how different the end of a graduating student's career might look, just think back to the early 1970s and just, if you can, and think, well, what was the world like then, you know? And then contrast that with today. So the degree of difference, and things are getting more different more quickly, so the rate and pace of change is accelerating. So actually, I think our job is yes, it's to do, and we've got the system we've got at the moment, so we'll do the very best we can, because that's our duty, if you like, to make sure we do that absolutely the best we can with students now under the kind of current terms, if you like. But I think the bigger job in the longer term is to think really seriously about the stuff that isn't in the qualification but is in the preparation for the rest of people's lives at whatever age they interact with the system. And my campaign, which I've sort of started to evolve in the last few weeks, is to not do those essential skills and attributes and experiences a disservice by calling them soft skills, which is what often happens, because that's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. They're not soft skills. They're the really essential hard skills, the necessary skills, the stuff that's far more important. And I don't know how many of us are still doing the job we kind of started doing when we first entered our career, but I'm certainly not. So, and it's been that other stuff, those other experiences that have enabled me to adapt and develop a career, not what I learned in school, that's for sure. So there you go, that's my
that's great, John.
background, if you like.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm going to come to Chinwe because you were nodding away there, and I'm just wondering what resonated with you and what you'd like to share.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Chinwe Russell. I'm an artist, businesswoman, curator. I was nodding away because what he was saying resonates with the conversation we had, before we started the formal session with regards to art students who spend 3-4 years in universities or colleges and then come out. They don't know what to do. They've got all these amazing skills, but then what do you do with it? How do you become an artist? Because becoming an artist is not just knowing how to create, nice pictures. There's a lot more that goes behind becoming an artist than just having the skills. And I was saying to him, I didn't go to art school, I went to business school. And it was because I went to business school that enabled me to become a successful artist. So that's what we were discussing, and it's quite good to hear his point of view with relation to other courses that they offer. In terms of what I do, I work mainly in the visual arts industry, painting, sculptures and all of that. When I arrived in Doncaster in 2018, it was barren in terms of visual arts. I mean, we had the museum, which had all the artifacts and everything, but there was really no thriving art scene. There was nowhere for me to show my work, so that's how my activities started, and also taking leaf from what you said, about opportunities. You found opportunities here. So for me, it was a question of, I found Doncaster to be a virgin landscape in a way,
definitely.
in terms of
Definitely.
of the visual arts.
Yeah.
It was quite surprising when I saw nothing was happening here when so much could be happening, so I decided to create the type of environment where I wanted to work in. I wanted to create a sector in which I would be happy to show my work. Do you see what I mean? So I imagine it was the same for you.
Yeah.
So when I realized that the opportunity was not there, I could have gone back to complain and say that there's no opportunity, but I decided to create the opportunity and got other people to buy into the idea with me. And this was how we started in 2018, and I met with a lot of resistance. There were hundreds of artists living in the area, and all of them were of the same opinion that art doesn't happen in Doncaster. So there was a lot of begging, give it one more chance, trust me, this is my qualification, I can make this happen, come, let's try again. And bit by bit, we started building the market, and it became quite exciting when we did the first art show. I decided for art to be successful in Doncaster, you have to go to where the people are. Traditionally, you expect people to go to galleries and museums, so they have to leave the comfort of their own home to make that effort. And people have better things, what they assume to be better things to do than to go to a museum, especially in this area. There are other concerns in the area. If it's in big cities like London, yes, people would naturally go and do such things. So I decided for this to be successful, you have to take it to where the people are, to the markets, to the pubs, where the people go naturally.
Yeah.
So that as they go, order their pints, they are looking at an exhibition. As they go to the butcher's hall in the Doncaster market, there's an exhibition there. So that's how I was able to penetrate, create an industry. And off of the back of that, other smaller art organizations started springing up because there was a renewed hope. They saw that actually this could work. A lot of artists, started creating work and started exhibiting, and it's grown to the three-story building that we have in Scott Lane a few years down the line, which we started during pandemic. And the main thing that I wanted to show was that for us to create a sector, we have to own it. You have to make the sacrifices that is required. The sector will not create itself. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah,
you see? And a lot of artists, a lot of visual artists are not equipped to do that. We work in an industry where we expect things to be given to us. We expect funding. We are artists, so we are the world's best gifted, But I wanted to show them that that is not the case. You need to create your own destiny. If you want to work in an environment which suits you, you need to make it happen. It's a very, very challenging industry because there's not a lot of money. We know how many arts, that sells.
So one of the comments from your story was about finding a home for your work.
Yes.
And I thought it was quite interesting that you were like, do your research and work out who's going to hang your paintings and then create for that rather than simply creating for art's sake.
Exactly.
Your story also resonates, I suppose, with the endeavour. So you tried something and had to keep trying and keep going. And it brings me, I suppose, to yourself, Adrian, in terms of when I was reading back the story, it could be seen that your success was an overnight thing. That 5 years ago you started with £1,500 in a van, and now there's a turnover of 4.5 million. But actually, it was the 20 years before that you were crafting your skill and some of those soft skills that were mentioned by John, and walking the streets of Doncaster, as it were, from a sales perspective. So I wonder if you can share, like, maybe what some of that could offer sort of young people or people who are sort of building a business.
I mean, when I left school when I was 16, I didn't do any of my GCSEs. That was family circumstances, didn't leave me in a good place. through no fault of my own, which left me, as I got later and older, which made me feel like a bit of an injustice to myself, but it was a circumstance I couldn't do anything about. So I fell into electrical wholesaling, spent 23 years in electrical wholesaling, selling lighting, selling goods, you know, right from the early days of the Yellow Pages, when I was 19, given the Yellow Pages, you know, and find some work, kid, you know, and I did, and I spent 23 years in an industry which was good to me. I worked hard, I learnt a lot about running a business. I was based in Doncaster, so I got to know a lot of people in Doncaster. You know, I'm an avid supporter of this city and town, and passionate and proud. Somebody who wanted to play for Doncaster Rovers but never quite made it. But now I've got my own equivalent, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, I think going into an industry which I, you know, didn't say I wanted to be in electrical wholesaling when I left school, didn't want to do that when I left school, or not knowing where I was going to go and feeling like I didn't really get the chance to make the most of myself. As I got to a bit of an older age, towards the age of 40, I've got to say I discovered quite a lot of myself in coaching children's football in Doncaster. I've got to say that Doncaster has got a fabulous community for children's football. I coached at Bessica FC, and Bessica's one of the biggest in the north for children's football, and it does a fabulous thing for kids in Doncaster. You know, teaching children life skills, teaching children how to come together as a team, and you know, we go to schools and we talk about schools, but the football in this town is fabulous for children, right from under 7s to under 18s. And I got involved with Bessica Football Club, and that gave me quite a lot of self-belief, to be honest. You know, I played football for a lot of years, and I wanted to teach children life skills through football. And the things that people said about me, you know, that they'd never seen a coach so passionate with the children, so energetic, and so, you know, we're down, we're getting beat, but that's okay, you know, so enthusiastic when they're getting beat. And it gave me a lot of self-confidence to actually think, there's more of a purpose in life here for me, you know, there's something else I can do. So it gave me to belief in myself, and I was in the electrical wholesaling, and I decided to quit my job and see where it took me. I had about 6 weeks worth of money, I had a house, I had a son. Some people may say it was quite risky or not responsible, but I believed in myself, you know. And at one point I thought to myself, I'm going to sell the RAC in the shopping centre. I'm free, I don't care, I'm my own person. I'll sell the RAC in a shopping centre, that's fine by me. And anyway, I didn't do that, but I did have an interview to do it, and I bought my own van, and at that point bought my own van and started to do deliveries for people, and I delivered a pallet to Great Yarmouth for £150 on my first job, and I was happy to get in my van, deliver a pallet, you know, on a Sunday, take the kids to football, coach kids football, and just settle down a little bit and see where I was going to go. And you know, I had this thing inside me where I wanted to achieve. You know, it was a long-standing thing from when I was 16, when I didn't get the opportunities to achieve, and I had this passion to succeed. And I thought, if Alan Sugar can do it, what's he got that's different to me? You know, 2 arms, 2 ears, the ability to learn yourself, the ability to self-develop. We've got books, we've got audio books, we've got everything out there. So I spent my time driving all over the country learning about logistics, learning about what it involved, you know, and throughout that time, that self-development and speaking to people like yourself, who's been in the industry for a long time, at networking events, and learning from people who was experienced in this industry, and getting my own entrepreneurial skills together, writing things down, and learning the industry. Today we'll do 5.5 million this year, and we've got 35 staff. But them 35 staff are people in and around Doncaster that have got a lot of transferable skills. People who maybe was not put in the right direction when they was younger, but want to be part of something. Everybody that works in my business, I can't think of one person that doesn't care, because we all want to be part of something. Whether we're 21, whether we're 51, whether we're 61, you know, we've still all got a bit of a child inside us that's yearning to be part of something and achieve. And that's what I've developed, you know, going through, looking at my own background and my own my own experiences in life, wanting to be something, wanting to achieve something, and wanting to be part of something, and that's what I've gathered in the business.
Kurt, can I ask you a question?
Go for it, yeah.
So, but that's leadership, isn't it? You create that purpose, don't you? As the person that sort of had that vision and that aspiration to do something for yourself, and then you kind of you're talking about the people that work with you, those 35 people, and they all believe in what. But that belief comes from somewhere, doesn't it? And I think, you know, once we talk a lot about kind of leadership and management and the structures around these things, and they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. You've got to have something that kind of is core purpose and guides kind of that and galvanises effort and desire and the want to be part of something. And I think that's such a, you know, critical. I mean, it's you know, alive in your organisation. You've talked about it. You know, I've kind of given a sense of what I believe in about my organisation. But that sometimes that's overlooked in the kind of mechanics of just doing the job. And I think there's something really critical around kind of, I suppose, seizing opportunity and kind of converting potential into real kind of value is around kind of creating that reason to believe and something to really kind of get.
You got to believe.
Yeah.
If you got to believe in what you're doing. Actually, I can resonate with you exactly the same, because when I left school, I didn't go to school. I wasn't academic. I hated school. I wanted to be a footballer. I played football when I left school. I was quite lucky, and then I actually jacked it in, and then I got into the video game industry through the Yellow Pages. Someone said you can test video games, like, oh, Yellow Pages, Bullfrog, Guildford, top developer in the world. I didn't know. And actually, my ex-wife used to go, I could have been a wag, like joking. I was like, I wasn't supposed to play football, I was supposed to make video games. That's what I was supposed to do. But if someone told me that when I was 16 at school, working in the games industry, I would never have believed that. And I was exactly like you when I left my job, you know, from the games industry. I had 25 grand, 3 kids and a mortgage, and I took the risk to set up my own business, you know, and there's that risk, like self-employed like us, you know, you take all of us, we take that risk. And I always go, if it was that easy, everyone would do it, right? And it is about having that self-belief in yourself.
When you talk about self-belief, and it comes in early part of your story, you said, and back at the blog, it said, people had confidence in me, so I had confidence in me. And that's this kind of external agent sometimes you need. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Andy, because obviously you've joined us.
As a substitute.
Well, not as a substitute, but I'm just wondering, you know, both your own journey, but the relationship with John that might have brought you to this point.
I came to Doncaster. I'm not a Doncastrian. I came to Doncaster 27 years ago from a distant land called Sheffield. It may have been a distant land because the people in Sheffield said, "You're going where? You're going where? Doncaster? Are you mad?" And that was the sort of response I got. It was really fascinating, actually. But I realised very quickly that Doncaster actually had a much more can-do attitude than Sheffield. I realised that very quickly. The people I dealt with were more open-minded. They were less parochial. And that is absolutely true. And I went to work for an organisation in a sector which I knew very well. I was a boring story very quickly. I was a trained underwriter. I was a really nasty person. I used to calculate people's insurance premiums and decide how much I could take off them. That was my job. And so the industry was easy. I knew my subject, but the area was different and the organisation was different. I was a gamekeeper turned poacher. It was a technical sales role. And I instantly fell in love with Doncaster, and I consider myself an honorary Doncastrian now. Now, Doncaster, during that time, it was on the back of, for those of you old enough to remember, on the back of Donny Donny was in a bit of a mess. It was a bit of a disaster, actually, bad reputation. But through partnership between the business community and the local authority, actually, they've done some remarkably transformational things. I can't believe what's changed during my tenure here, actually. I look at more recently Fars, I look at the Southern Gateway, I look at the racecourse, I look at the shopping centre. You think about what has changed, the new Doncaster Rovers Stadium, and you compare that, Doncaster College, you compare that to any other South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire town, and it's probably developed a lot more than people realise, actually. My wider concern, it's probably the discussion point later, is the branding of Doncaster and the way that can be improved, actually. We can get onto that later. But in terms of my relationship with John, who did the the blog. When I started, I was at a firm called Atkinson Smith. I don't know if any of you remember it. We were just a standard commercial insurance broker, so we insure places like this. We you know, at the moment I've got clients here, got clients doing different things, and it was a pretty standard, steady state. But we realised that you have to add value. You can't be a transactional commodity. You've got to add something to your clients' businesses. So we evolved the risk management proposition based on health and safety, then employment law, and now got an environmental consultancy. And the business has grown, and if I say so myself, we're extremely successful. Going back to purpose and passion and leadership, and that is really important. So I was very lucky, and I've always been lucky. I've always worked with really good people. I think my skill was that I realised I worked with good people, and I plagiarised and I learned. And there's nothing wrong in that, because I think that's a good skill actually to have. So I'm working with somebody in John Whiteley who had an incredible passion for what he believed in, and he trusted his people. That was really important. So there was never a culture of failure or fear of failure. It was go and do it, live, flourish. You know, I know you guys, back to your point about diverse skills, you pick people from the pile that says no, because that's where the skills exist. And John recognised that if he created the framework, he created the environment, and then let people flourish, the fizzy bubbles would pop up. And that's what we've done, and we've invested then. I've learnt from that. And I took over essentially the operational running of the business back in 2015. And I've continued exactly the same principles. We've not deviated from that at all. Obviously, the world has changed in terms of the way you would operate. COVID hit, of course. You know, we've actually recently been through a buyout. We've sold the business, although I'm reinvested in that new business. But it's changed the culture all of a sudden in terms of certain financial mechanisms. But our job locally is to protect our people and create and maintain that environment. And that, for me, is a really important thing. So I think we've got a really open, learning and nurturing environment. We want our people to learn. We want them to develop. I know that there are people in that organisation that are a lot better than me. Technically, they've got all the skills. And I think, sat around this table, the resignation, I'm sat here listening to all of you speak, I'm thinking, yeah. Best of FC, I was a coach as well. Brilliant, fantastic, you know. I left school, wanted to be a footballer, you know. I thought, I did A-level. I thought, I'm not doing university. What a waste of time, but I just don't need to do that. But then you talk about the other things. I think your comments, John, about the structure and the way things are measured, and the fact you have 3 years for the future. The future is going to be a really strange place. The future is going to be really, really weird. And I think if you look at AI, augmented reality, and what's coming down the line, I don't think we realise what's coming down the line. So we've got to create that foundation, that place where people learn and learn to adapt and aren't rigid in thought. So that's what I've been lucky enough to learn.
Wow, that's thank
Well,
you.
move with the rhythms and changes. That's what you have to go with.
You've got,
always changing, right?
I think from a very early age, when kids get to school, they've got to be told, you are not in a box. You are 1, 2, 3 dimensional. And be open-minded, be curious, because the world is going to change, and you've got to adapt and move and flow with that world.
Definitely.
And that's what you've got to do. And that goes back to probably your comment regarding the education system. And all these things, I looked at, I read the blogs actually. And as I read the blogs, I thought, education, opportunity, the themes are very similar. So it's a very interesting world we're in at the moment.
I think it's important what you said. I think, like Adrian, I always think you've got to make it a cool place to come to work before you do the work, because then people want to come to work.
Part of something, belief in something.
They're part of the cog. We have no hierarchy where we are. Nothing on our emails, nothing. We don't do that because everyone's equal. Down to our cleaner, we're all part of that massive cog. And actually, like the education, just quickly, you say about, we do these games design courses and art and animation. It actually touches on both. But they could go to universities or colleges. What they're going to be a game designer in the games industry and do the next GTA? It's not going to happen. They're left by the way. They are left by the wayside quite a lot when they come out of education universities. It's like, well, I've just spent 3 years doing a master's. What? I can't get a job in the industry that I want to be in. And actually, a lot of those people that work for us are exactly those people. They were artists. And done 3 years or 5 years, but actually couldn't get a job in the games industry. So actually the easiest way to the games industry is through games testing. And then your other point, actually, what I really liked is so much talent up here. There's so much hidden talent in Doncaster. There's not enough opportunity for them to actually bring that out of them, which I think is what we need to do. Is like, there's so much talent. There's a talent pool here. It's just not touched on. It's just sitting there waiting for us.
I want to bring us sort of full circle. I want to bring us bring Karen in, just in the sense that the last time we met, you were retired, and we just had a quick chat at the top of the stairs there, and you were like, but not for long. So for somebody who's kind of like been and gone from Doncaster more than once, and you've come back as a place to work, and you're contemplating another opportunity potential, which may or may not be in Doncaster, but I'm intrigued. You know, what's your reflections on what you've heard, but also your story within that?
Okay, Karen Beardsley, retired, ex-managing director of Unipart Rail in Doncaster, and also I've done a stint out in Australia as MD for Australia. Born and bred in Doncaster, something I'm very proud of. And I did go away. I left school at 18, joined the National Coal Board, which doesn't exist anymore, which shows how old I am. And did my further education with them because they did day release, which was fantastic, getting paid and going to college 1 day a week. But then to pursue my career, I needed to leave Doncaster because the opportunities weren't there, which I think has left sort of that little nugget in my mind that the opportunities didn't exist at the time. But as soon as there was an opportunity, I needed to come back, and I've worked all over in the Middle East. I've worked in Lancashire. I actually did go to the dark side once. But I've always come back to Doncaster, and I had the last 25 years luckily with Unipart Rail, a job I absolutely loved. I think there's a couple of things that's been said that if I think back to my role in Unipart Rail, I don't know where the education is completely broken because I'm not close enough to it, but what I would say is, as a receiver of people coming out of colleges and university, they weren't ready for work in any stretch of the imagination, even down to the sort of times that they had to spend at work. Some of them weren't prepared for that. I think whether it is the soft skills, the communication skills, the team building, the most important thing though is that they need to continue to learn and develop. And Unipart's a fantastic company for developing its people and investing in its people. The role I ended up in sort of continuous improvement and setting up the consultancy business wasn't my bag at all. I came out of procurement and supply chain, but they gave me the opportunity to move into something different because they believed in developing people. And that's something that in the roles I've been in, it's the best part of a job is seeing people flourish and get promotion and really take pride in what they're delivering. And I think the only way you can do that is business has to create this continuous learning environment. And that's, I think, what when kids join the workforce, that's what they've got to get their heads around. And absolutely, I agree with what you said about we haven't got a clue what's coming our way. I mean, things are just changing so quickly. My old boss, John Neal, got onto the sort of digital agenda very early on in the 4.0 and all of that. And he was trying to get the business ready to make big changes and get people used to the fact that you might join and do this job, but that's not what you're going to do forever. And kids are probably going to have 3 or 4 careers. So that getting them ready to develop and businesses really developing in and investing in their people is something I feel strongly about. In terms of me, I had 3 fantastic months out in Portugal. I've got a place out in Portugal, and after my retirement I went out there for 3 months, loved it. And then winter hit and we came back here and I was bored to death really. So I've started, I am a member, a non-exec on the chamber, and I put some time into that, but I am looking for some gainfully employed, paid employment, I think is the expression. Don't know if I want to do it full-time, but I want to do something part-time or short-term. I think I've got a lot to offer. I've got a wealth of experience. I am a firm believer in that Doncaster has punched well above its weight for a long time. But I also think we've been very bold. And I think I do remember sort of all the horror stories about Doncaster. You know, when I left school at 18, it was a fantastic place. We had coal, we had railways, we had steel in Sheffield, we had lots of work and people, and Doncaster was a thriving town. And then it just went horrible, and the I don't know if anybody remembers the TV programme that there were people out in Doncaster, and it just painted us as a god-awful place you would never let your kids go out. And I just thought that's not the Doncaster that I love and I am proud of. So I think being bold and setting ourselves a strong agenda about wanting to do more, getting city status, whatever happens with the GB Railways, that looks like Derby might be the favourite now, but we've got a lot to do, and I hope I'm part of it as well in Doncaster.
I think there's a really, really important message there for you in terms of your expertise that I think we need to consider is when people get to retirement and they leave an industry that they're in, or they leave a particular role, that's a loss in terms of organisational intellect, expertise, experience, and the person behind will be quite a distance from you. And I think there's something for us to think about as a city about how we retain some of that knowledge, and it doesn't have to always be within the confines of a standard full-time employment, 9 to 5. It's how do we retain this expertise within Doncaster in some other way. So I think it's great
Maybe
that
you should have a conversation with Mr Sunak about getting retired people back into work.
It's definitely, there is something in that. I want to give you more
about Doncaster. I just want to add something about Doncaster. We're proud to support some of the world's biggest logistics companies with their public sector contracts, with their major contracts for Land Rover, McLaren, and the list goes on. We support DHL with Network Rail, with HMP. We support GXO with the BT work. The list goes on, the amount of big contracts. Seaver, we're a big supplier to them, and Cargo Partner, a £2.2 billion worldwide company with 160 branches all over the world, 100 sales reps in China. And we deal and support these companies. And they've always got a little bit of interest in Doncaster. Doncaster really interests me as a town. In the logistics sector, it's obviously growing and booming. And it's got a lot on, a lot of people are always interested in the town. We deal with DHL HMP and their bases in Hatfield, near Hatfield down south, and the guy's interested. What's happening in Doncaster? Why do I keep hearing these logistics things or things, companies, big companies, Seaver popping up in Doncaster? Guys at Cargo Partner at Manchester. I brought them over to our office, the MD, who's now the MD for Europe, a guy called Neil. And I took him to the airport. I said, let's go up to the airport. We've got a collaboration with the airport at Doncaster. We do a lot on rail. I took him up there and he's like, wow, this is amazing. And he heads up Europe now, for a £2.2 billion company. So, it's nice. Yeah. It's nice to...
It's nice. It leads me in. So I'm priming Mitch for an opportunity to ask a question. So whilst you're conjuring that, I will also invite you all to have a think about what you've heard from each other, and if there's something you would like to know about each other's worlds, or you've just got a thing that you'd like to put out there and see what people's responses to it might be, because I'm intrigued with what's going on in people's minds right now. So while you're thinking of that, Mitch, I don't know if you want to pose any particular question to the room or to one individual.
I think generally on the reflections, it'd be really interesting actually to hear everyone's stories, and I think they all resonate back to something you said, John, about this. How do we create that talent pool for the almost, I'm going to call them sustainable skills, I suppose these soft skills. Thinking about the next 50 years plus, all of your stories have something similar, and it's very much actually that 2-3 year program you might have got at college. It's not set to what you've all got up like now. That's not the reason why you're all successful. So that really resonated to me is about actually, if we were going to think about, what might allow more people in Doncaster to have opportunity is that kind of sustainable soft skills, whatever you want to call them. And I suppose for me, it's how do we unlock that? So success stories across the room here have been able to kind of take those skills, take those risks, be able to have that been empowered to be able to make the next step in their journey. How do we develop that? What's kind of the thing we need to unlock to help that kind of resonate across more citizens, residents in Doncaster? Is it a branding type thing and getting those stories out there? Is it something specific with the college and Harrison College, etc.? I suppose that's what I'm quite interested in, is how do we take, I say, the skills you all seem to have and how to almost scale that up wider to access more residents and opportunities like that.
Karen?
I guess I've got a couple of things that concern me, I suppose, really. When we were doing the city status bid, there was some pushback from some of the residents of Doncaster. And I guess this also, and I'm not sure whether I'm articulating this particularly well, but it's got to fit with me. I love discussion, but it's also always got to have action out at back of it. Everybody who's worked with me knows that you don't leave meetings just we've had a wonderful debate. No, there's got to be an action plan that comes out the back. And I think for me, we need to turn this into action somehow, because us talking about what we've done is good to inspire people, but then it's so what? And I think that's the bit I'm struggling with. How do we turn this into something where people in Doncaster will say it's delivering something for Doncaster? There's some actions that come out of it. I can participate in some of those actions. I can see a way that my child will get a better education, will get a better job. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is we've got a good combination of sort of businesses and service industry, arts, culture, education. There's not a lot of manufacturing in this room. And my passion is manufacturing, even though I've spent the last 20 odd years in logistics. You've got to have Britain needs more manufacturing. We need to be doing more, and we've got to find a way of tapping into that in Doncaster, because I think better skilled jobs means we get a better economy, which means that we can invest more, which means you get kids want to stay in Doncaster. So it's how do we wrap all that up? And I don't know if that makes sense on the ramble.
No, it does. And the action points, I suppose that's what I'm trying to get pop on really, is that I know there's work happening in the education and skills space to kind of maybe break some of that bubble and new ways of learning, etc. I suppose for me, it's almost what do businesses want, what do they need, what do they want to see from an action point of view from, whether it be, the council, whether it be the chamber support, whether it be educational institutions.
And businesses themselves.
Absolutely.
There's a responsibility all round, I think. I can't remember who's because I agree with you quite. I don't remember who said it first, but that kind of ideas are easy, but execution is everything. And there's another thing that kind of attaches to that for me, which is the pursuit or the approach to collaboration. Collaboration often is much more difficult than just doing your own thing and kind of sticking your head down and saying, well, I've only got to think about my own organisation. Collaboration is really hard. And there is I think, an underlying sense, which is kind of really positive and necessary around always trying to find a consensus view on everything. But there's also a kind of real world sort of reality or recognition, which is you're never going to get everybody to agree on everything all of the time. And that can sometimes be the reason why we don't mobilise and do things. And we spend a long time, perhaps too long, forever, trying to get everybody comfortable with everything we're trying to do. And that's probably one of the reasons why we sometimes never start. So maybe there's a sort of mindset which is, what's enough to get going, and then and do that, and recognise that some people are not going to, and probably never are going to be kind of on board with what you're doing. But you've got to kind of create a critical mass. You've got to take enough people with you, and if you really back to that belief, if you really kind of believe in what you're doing, and you've got really kind of good justification and reason for what you're doing, and you're really passionate about it, then that should be enough, and recognise it. I don't know what that number is, but that tipping point in terms of enough people and organisations with you is probably enough, rather than trying to get those people at the absolute extremes.
I think that's interesting, because I know part of my sort of consultancy was around change management, and when you're trying to drive a change in an organisation or anywhere, you've got your sort of 20% that you're naysayers, and no matter what you're going to do, are always going to say no. Your 20% that were really positive and will go anywhere and
never
do
work
anything.
in Doncaster.
And then you've got that chunk in the middle who'll sit in the fence and wait and see what's happening. And when we were doing a lot of improvement work, you used to play to your naysayers, because you kept thinking you've got to bring everybody with you, but actually all that happened is those that sat in the middle deviated and all moved to be more naysayers. If you're focused on the 20% that really want to give it a go, all the ones in the middle come with you, and you leave your 20% behind. Well, tough. They can then make their mind up what the hell they want to do, if they want to join with us or not. And I think that's much more positive, because you actually get some momentum in things and drive things then.
I found that you've got to, giving that accountability anyway. You've got to lead that accountability, haven't you, in action. I'm the same. I hate having meetings and things are not getting actioned afterwards, or there's nothing, you know. So holding that accountability for them actions and trying to lead as an entrepreneur from the front and show the direction and gathering the people with you, you know. I've learned a lot about carbon reduction and the, you know, dealing with companies like DHL, you know, hold on, we're giving them scope 3 carbon reduction for a goods and service, you know. So who's actually going to them and saying, would you like a report of that, Mr. DHL? Would you like us to be able to tell you what carbon you're producing for our goods and services that you're giving to us? And when you start getting everybody, the team on board, actually, we're not doing this to tick a box, guys. We're doing this because it's good for the climate and it's right for the future of our children and our environment. And this is why we're getting behind it, guys. And, you know, come on, let's all get on board. Let's all think about this. That's some of the... No, go for it. You know, no, but it's me giving that leadership and accountability, you know, and making that, right, okay, we're all accountable in this. I can't do it on my own. If we all want the success, if we all want to go together and make a change, develop, make the profitable bottom line, but make a difference in the environment, then I can't do this on my own, guys. And if you're not with me, then you might as well go somewhere else.
Listening, first of all, one thing I want to say is reassuring, because I took a risk in 2019 to come out of mainstream school, and all of my staff have come out of mainstream education and have believed in what I was doing, in listening to businesses, listening to the economy and creating a curriculum that is for business rather than for Ofsted, the DFE, ticking boxes. And everything that you've been saying actually is what we do at Harrison College. So it's actually just reassuring that people in a room that, you know, are very... from big businesses, respected Unipart Rail, you know, talking about all these things that you're wanting from employees, we're actually doing at Harrison College. And one of the things that I think, Mitch, when you were saying, how do we get that? How do you create a culture of that? I think the culture is education provision, and it is hard because we're bound by the DFE and Ofsted. We're not, because I took a step out of it and we found a loophole in the system. So we have a lot of freedom, but listening to business, I think, is the way to change a culture around learning and development. What do businesses want from people? They don't want pieces of paper. As Andy said, you know, you've got a stack of CVs and kids come out with pieces of paper, but they don't turn up on time. They're not resilient. They can't communicate. They can't work in a team. They can't handle it if you say, you've done that wrong. Well, I'll throw my toys at my pram, have a tantrum, and I'm off for the day. So our curriculum is built around the businesses that we work with. I think that's a culture that Doncaster could embody, and I know it's something the council are looking at, and I'm part of a group looking at that. But if the business community said, you know what, the be-all and end-all is not a piece of paper and how many 4s and 5s you've got, and you know it would go against the grain of Ofsted and DFE, but actually we want young people that can be resilient and can be open to change and can listen to reasoning and go, yeah, okay, we are going to change direction. That is right for our business or the community, the economy. And education at whatever age is looking at what are businesses telling us? What are you wanting? If you want to be an employee, what does a business want us to do? And that's how we build our curriculum. And so I think, as John was saying, business have got to be involved in the conversation of what can they offer? How can they advise education, the local authority, on actually, we want this. And we're getting there because we're talking to businesses. We're listening to Robbo about how do you create someone that's good at games testing. Robbo doesn't want me. He doesn't want me to. Yeah, he doesn't want me to get a BTEC off the shelf and they're going to do BTEC game design. He wants us to go, right, here's your learning tool. We'll teach that, and we'll teach that young person how to do it specific for KUDOS. And that's a very specific case, but we talk to businesses and then we deliver our training, our curriculum around that business, that industry want these skills. They don't want this piece of paper because they can teach you that when you get there. You can put them on CPD courses and training development. You can teach that when you get there, but you can't teach those skills where you turn up every day and you put your phone in your bag and you turn it off and you wear a particular uniform and you do as you're asked. Because what other things that young people don't realise is we have businesses coming nearly every day and talking about journeys, which is amazing. And then the kids will go, yeah, I want to be a CEO. They've got to understand that's great. And they'll want to be Adrian. And then you'll go, yeah, but you've got to work 25 years and you've got to, what a community, in our community we see, they think they can go in up here. And what they don't realise is there is a pathway and you've got to start here to learn skills and learn your industry and learn your job and then you start moving up.
But Gemma, why do they think that? Why do they think? Why aren't they accepting that it starts there?
I think because for us, we see students as the world's very fast paced for them. It's all very immediate. It's on social media, it's on TikTok, it's you click on Amazon, it's delivered the day after. Everything is immediate and I want it right now. Actually, they don't realise you have to work hard for it. And so a lot of schools don't want to say that to them. You know, I've worked in provisions where, no, don't challenge the kids, just let them have their aspirations. But it's not realistic and they can't go out into the world thinking these things. And so we are very open and honest with our young people. Robbo's seen it in action. We'll tell people if it's not working. The intern that they had, we were very honest and we were saying, don't kind of hold back. You need to be very honest with them and what's working. And Karen, your point about the retired community. So one of the things that we've got 3 mentors, all people that have been highly successful business people like yourself, and they come and mentor our students because that's how they need to learn. The experts in going into an industry are the people that have been in it, not the teachers. The teachers are experts in education, and so they're very good at teaching English, maths, computer science, whatever it might be, but actually working in that industry and being a successful employee comes from someone that's been in the industry. So I think a way to keep that retired community buoyant and active is get them into working with young people or mentoring that second generation. I want to change career. How do I get into logistics, rail, game design, and getting people to mentor them in the local community. And as Chinwe said, go into where they are. I've heard conversations in different groups about, you know, we're going to do learning days, we're going to do community days, but we're going to do it in the library. That's not where people go. People go to the pub, people go to the supermarket, people go where they like enjoying and spending time. I think the council need to learn from people like Chinwe that if you want to do initiatives and agendas and get the community behind it, go to where they are. And that's how it works, because Doncaster's community aren't ready for that kind of culture of I'm going to go to this place where this experience is. Unfortunately, the experience come to them. So then they engage with it, and then we'll go to the gallery now because they've seen it in their space and gone, oh, I like that. I'll go and find more of it. And taking and learning is very hard. I think in Doncaster we've got generational benefit claimants, and our biggest barrier at the college, and I don't know if John's is the same, is that you get a young person an apprenticeship and you're going like, yes, we've done it, we've got the destination, and mum is sat at home going, yeah, but you get more on benefits. And is that, and it's a culture and it's a community problem that we can't solve on our own and John can't solve on his own. But there are young people out there that are wanting to work, that are wanting to have self-esteem, that are wanting to get up every day and do things and learn how to be an employee. And that's the biggest thing I think that I've heard from you guys. It's reassuring me we're doing the right thing.
They want a career, right?
Yeah, they want to learn, they want a job.
They don't want to be like the parents on benefits out there. They want a career to do something with themselves, right? I think. So
if you can get businesses involved, Victor, either through the chamber or the council on giving time and experience knowledge, because you can't get that in a book. You know, all stories that Karen will have about all the things that you've done in your career, you can't get that in a book because it's got to come from you. And we get that from our mentors. You know, we've got Lynn, who was from HR, so she does fantastic work with some of our students on getting ready for interviews. Because that's another thing that kids can't do. They go to an interview and they've got no idea what they're doing. They sit there and they kind of, if you don't train them, I mean, we do, they just sit there and don't say anything. And we'll have them practising coming in outdoors. And you'll have done the same, John. They open a door and you go, did you knock? Oh, get out. So they do it again.
But these things have to be practised.
Yes.
Rehearsed.
You know,
I can't understand why this has changed though.
Can I?
Because I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't taught to walk through a door. So why has it changed?
Because they spend so much time on devices, don't they?
Did you get your... I do feel with what I'm about to say now, so I apologise. I got mine at home from my parents.
Yes.
My parents gave me my work ethic, absolutely. My parents explained to me that I would need to work for a living and would need to work my way up and work hard to work my way up, and gave me the life skills, I think, that what it was like to go for an interview. We actually had conversations, so I knew how to communicate with people. There were 3 kids and my parents, so we were part of a team, and you had to fight for to get what you wanted to do. So I think I got mine at home, and I don't know whether do they not get that at home
the
these
scary
days?
thing is, I don't know if John's cohort is a lot bigger than mine, and I've worked in some of the schools in Doncaster. The scary thing is, no. A lot of young people will be in bedrooms on Xboxes, PlayStations, phones, TikToking, Snapchatting.
I want to just put a thing in here, in a sense of.
Robbo loves that, by the way.
We,
I was just about to say, that ain't a bad thing.
I need to do talking as well.
I used to go to a round table and there's our parents complaining about their kids getting into the game industry. There's no career path.
So there is. It's huge.
For like 30 years. Yeah,
what we need to be conscious of is philosophically. So if we all think about the era we were born into, so we were thrown into the world that we didn't choose. We fall into a set of societal norms that are around our family unit, and then we have a choice about being and making choice about what we will do. So I was falling into a very different world to young people that have been falling into now. So I'm going to forgive sort of young people for who they are as a consequence of the world that they are being brought up with.
It's not their fault, Kurt. No. It's not their fault.
And this is the thing I want to make sure that we acknowledge, that they're in a certain space now where there is this immediate candy store of everything that can come to you. So then things that, like, I remember I've had this joke before where I could have a debate with a friend about the lyrics of a song at school, but I'd have to go home and get the inlay of something to read it. So patience was built in. Whereas now I just get my phone and Google it. So there's a change in the way that our brains operate and work as a consequence. I want to move us forward just because we won't have huge amounts of time. So I want to actually come to your point about branding.
Yeah.
So you talked about this and said...
Yeah, so one of my slight issues with Doncaster, I think it's improved actually, is that it often looks backwards. The feeling of the mines and the things surrounding history, nostalgia. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good. But the future's in front of you, not behind you. You've got to have a little bit of a tick box. That exists, and we know that. That's what built this city. But that's long gone now. And I think that Doncaster has got to change its outlook. And I look at things like the races. The races are massive and it brings lots of revenue. But actually it portrays a town that's just about debauchery and getting drunk. Is that really the brand we want? We're trying to... Art, culture, these are the things we've got to start driving. We've got to reposition, for me, the town. We've got to start looking slightly differently. And that comes down to planning as well. So when you're in the, city centres are difficult for every city, not just Doncaster. But when you've got planning permission, who are you letting come into the town centre? What are the quality of the outfits coming in there? And it's all these subtle things. And then the message that goes out. I think hybrid air vehicles this last week, what a story that is. And I think that's a great story. Manufacturing, what a sell. And we need to get on the back of that now. And Business Doncaster, the chamber, needs to be dragging everybody in. And we've got to create the environment to drag those organisations in. But if we're going to get people from the south to come, we've got to make a compelling case why Doncaster needs what it is. Why are you coming to Doncaster? And for me at the moment, I think there's still a bit of a gap branding-wise. And I think if you went... Adrian's point about it's interesting what you said, actually, about different around the country, people saying, oh, Doncaster, Doncaster. Yeah. And that is good, actually. That's really good, powerful to hear that, actually, because I've not heard that.
You've got the Golden Triangle in the Midlands
in the
now,
Northamptonshire,
This is looked as the up-to-date Golden Triangle.
Absolutely, yeah. And to build on top of that, to add a layer of... And it sounds harsh, but a level of sophistication that doesn't currently exist. And start thinking start thinking sophistication. Stop thinking about the past, start thinking this is what we're going to look like with a digital economy.
I'd love a games hub here.
With digital economy, with arts, with the great education establishments. That's what we need. That's the direction of travel that we need to move in.
I cannot agree with you more, Andy. This is current conversation that I have every day. The nostalgia, the minds, the it gets so boring. We need to move away from...
You've got to recognise it, but move forward, look forward.
We recognise it, but it's in the past. The future is ahead of us. There's so much we could be doing right now without resting on past
That's what you can change. That's what you can change. You write your own story, don't you?
Yeah, in terms of branding, we also need to look at aesthetics of the town. What is the first thing you see when you come into that? Planning, design, all those tired facades you see in the I'm in the town centre every week, 3 days a week, because that's where the gallery is. And the reason why we're in the heart of the problem, where you see all the drunk people and fighting and people urinating in the street, we've got the gallery right in there because we want to contribute to that aesthetics. Do you see what I mean? If we keep looking backwards, we're not going to move forward. We just need to use the lessons from the past to build the future and the present that we have. I was part of the City Status Board, along with you and several other people. My daughter has been waiting to actually see, the result of the city status, because people need something visible to show that we're a city now. And that's what foreigners, people who are bringing investment, they're going to be looking at. When you go into the city centre, you don't feel safe there. You realize you don't want to be there. But what makes a city, it's what people see when they come in. That's the first impression you get. If we don't get the branding right now, from the visual, nobody's going to want to come.
We've got
So,
the sort of station that looks all nice and new. We've got this, and we've got that bit in the middle that just is awful, really. And I know it is. All cities and towns have got the same problem. But I think we could. I've said we've been bold in the past. We need to be bold, which means we need to come up with something different that other cities aren't doing. Whether that's making more accommodation in the city area, just something different that would make us stand out. And actually, when you walk into the city, you've got a combination of things to go in for, whether that's eating, whether that's drinking, whether that's arts, whether that is shops, living accommodation, whatever it might be. And I do agree with you. We moan a lot because we've had a good time in the past. But we need to stop moaning. We're in control of our own destiny here. And I know levelling up and all of that is whatever
Well,
you
don't
think
wait
of
for it to happen.
We have
Don't
to
wait
take
for it to
control of
happen.
our own destiny, I think.
You said there, eateries. Where do you go and eat? You have clients come here. Where are you going to take them to eat?
Go?
Lalazar's
or the fish
Where are you
market.
going
It's
to take
not
them to
too cold.
There
There's
really
some
isn't
great
any
places to eat.
Strawberry
There
cafe.
really is. If you dig under the belly, there's some great places.
but they're not. But you don't know. How do you know that? Where are they?
Rustica, what used to be Carlo's, or you look at, there's other places. There's nice places to eat in and around. But my partner's recently moved 2 years ago. Moved from Nottingham. She lived in Nottingham, and Nottingham's a vibrant city, and she moved to Doncaster. She lives in Bawtry with me. We live in Bawtry, and she won't tell people she's from Doncaster. She says Bawtry. Oh, Doncaster. No, Bawtry. But she went into the town centre and she felt unsafe.
Yeah, I must admit. If I'd take people out to eat, I live in Bawtry as well, and that's where I'd take them to eat.
We do think that. We're like, where'd you go?
Conscious of time, and I see Mitch leaning in.
No,
By the way, sorry, Mitch.
No. Well, I mean, obviously,
we used to live in the city, but sorry.
obviously, practical, especially when you're at the city centre stuff, obviously the need then for investment from government bodies, from obviously South Yorkshire to be able to make some of the challenges. I mean, I find this conversation really interesting because I think this comes back to actually, I think the branding for me is not just an exterior branding, I think it's an interior branding.
Branding should be real.
And some of the work work I've done in communities, out and about, there's an intergenerational challenge, which I think you've highlighted on, which I actually call good past, bad future. We speak to all the residents, they're hung up on this, we've got a good past, speak to young people, all they see is a bad future, and how do you bridge that divide and actually flip that so it is more looking forward thinking. I suppose what I'm really intrigued about is obviously, especially from the KUDOS gang, obviously relatively new to Doncaster from the south. I mean, what was that branding? I mean, what was that thing that when you first, maybe you were looking for locations in the north, I don't know if you were looking at multiple places, what was the thing that grabbed your attention from a branding exterior point of view? What was the opportunity? I'm just curious to know, is it something
it was
we
more,
can expand
it's more
upon?
our investor and us having the same goals, as in we wanted to give opportunity to people. We say young people, it is aimed at everybody, but to young people, because there's nothing here for them. Especially in the creative sector, there's nothing. Where are they going to go? There's no games companies down south where I'm from, Guildford. That's actually Hollywood of the games industry. There's 70 games companies there. If you had a college like Donny, they'd be walking out of there and getting into the games industry. They walk out of Donny College or uni, they can't get in the games industry because there's no games companies. So that's what we're saying. We've mentioned even like today, Mo, before. You need to build a games hub, an ecosystem where the students can come from there, can create their own development studios, can make their own games companies. You start getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games companies here, then all the big boys will come here So, well, there's 10 companies there, and that's how Guildford done it. That's why EA there. That's why Ubisoft went there. Activision, you know, that's why they all went there, because there's a massive talent of people.
It's interesting. It's a bit chicken and egg potentially, isn't it? Which is, I mean, if you just look at it through a very simplistic lens, but often policy kind of works like that. The way in which institutions are judged is where you've got to demonstrate to us that you have a curriculum which is closely aligned to the skills needs of your localities, whether that's, let's take it as Doncaster, right? So what's the economic and employment plan for the area look like? So if you to say, well, okay, well, we've got 100% of our curriculum lined up against 100% of the current sort of economic map in and employment map in Doncaster, on the one hand, somebody saying, well, you've got it nailed on, haven't you? Does that mean we shouldn't have a creative arts curriculum? Does that mean we shouldn't have a digital curriculum because there isn't an well, there might be an emergent, but there isn't a buoyant sort of economy in that, or sector in those sections of the economy? And I think partly we've got to be part of the engine for change as well as, so it's like you say, if the talent pool's there, then that's part of the reason for industries to emerge.
That's why they come. That's why the game. Yeah.
But it's so difficult to kind of, well, which comes first? You know, do we respond to the skills needs of the employment mix, or do we drive it by creating people with the right skills and talents?
And actually, do you know what? We're proud that we've come to Donny and done this. Because there's nothing, you know, we put a job ad out there, people are like, I didn't even think this was real. What, a games testing company? What, in Donny? That's you know, we put an ad out, we get 700-800 people apply in about 3-4 days, like boom, we shut it. We don't have to leave it up for weeks. But, you know, for us, we're proud that we came to Donny, you know, because we know we're helping young people doing a job that they love to do. You do a job that's your hobby, you never do a day's work, right? So to be able to do that, rather than being a picker-packer, not saying it's wrong, working at making sandwiches or making coffees, most of them in warehouses, and they're sitting there going, all I want to do is just play games. All I want to do, you know. But and we've given them that opportunity, you know, to get out of that where they are creative, but there's been no creative opportunities for them. So they've, you know, us coming here, that's the reason why we came to Donny. We were in Churchview actually originally.
No, Churchview.
We were over there, but actually where we are now is a lot better. And obviously we want to keep growing, you know, and you know we bring economy to the town, right?
I think branding wise as well. I think when you were saying about this past and the future, I think in the past year we've got those industries, and when you look at things and you look at the council talk about cornerstone employees, or to change the name of whatever they're going to call them, the cornerstones, there's something else and there's something else. I think what they focus on that too much, in my opinion. They need to be looking at when you're branding the city, things like KUDOS and VFX and ALUS that are doing drones, and we're now working with ALUS and Mike's desperate to get kids running drones
VR
and things.
companies, right?
It's those kind of things that would attract investment. So when looking at branding, and then John can look at his curriculum and go, yeah, we can bring all this and change things. Actually, the new industries that are attractive, that are growing worldwide, Doncaster don't seem to put an emphasis on that. At the minute, the cornerstones that are being discussed are still rail, which it always will be, because that's what Doncaster was built on, and still healthcare, because we've got a big hospital. But actually, the industries that are going to attract investment and then be able to change and be able to, you know, the sexy part of Doncaster are the things like KUDOS and the digital side and VFX and drones and all the VR technology. So branding needs to look at actually what's emerging and growing, and then education can get on board, because then it's the chicken in the egg, and you go, you know what, this exciting industry in Doncaster, we've got logistics, and if you've got logistics here, then you create games and it can be distributed and all these different things. But we don't seem to shout about the successes that are in Doncaster. When we talk about KUDOS, people go, there isn't game testing in Doncaster. There is, they're massive. And they've got all these links with these game designers. Really?
So,
yeah.
So there's something that resonates with me, and it comes back to we met years ago, me and you, Adrian, at a round table in the Holiday Inn in Doncaster. Yeah. And I remember you sitting at the table there, and at that time you were a smaller entity, and it was asking, how can smaller entities get a better bite of the cherry, or the cake? Now you're a large entity, and you're getting that, but it took you maybe to become a large entity to get in to some of these spaces, and you've mentioned in your story around it, the landscape can be dominated by larger entities. What about the smaller collective? So, you know, some of us at the table, whilst we're growing and we're becoming more, which allows us to get more, I suppose, land that's out there. We should keep an eye on that. You know, how do we create space for the smaller companies to grow from. Which brings me to, I suppose, sort of closing this, which is my one ask is I'm going to ask each of you to, what is your one ask of Doncaster as a economy, or Doncaster as, a system provider, whether that be the council or the chamber or an employer body. But my ask is to not forget the small organisations, because they either make up a huge percentage in general of economy in Doncaster, or become large institutions because they're good at what they do. So you say you don't like to have just meetings with no actions. We can take action. We can ask of other people. My action is to keep an eye out for the sole trader and the small company, and see what I can do to ensure that they get a continual opportunity to have a bite of whatever cake is there. So I wouldn't mind if we sort of went round the room and just said, what would be your one ask? So Adrian, if you don't mind me coming to you.
I think in the latest budget, obviously, they talked about returnships for 50 plus. My mum's 62-ish. She's worked tirelessly to get a job. She's struggled with mental health, and I like this returnship for 50 plus, not just because of my mum, but I think there is a lot of life skills, life experience. People haven't fallen into the right job, really haven't had the chance or the opportunities to do something that they might really love or care about or be passionate about. So I think on the back of that, that's what I'd like to see more of, that 50 plus coming back into work, working within our local communities and local businesses.
Cheers. On a personal note, but also listening to what kind of everyone's really fed into, is for the council to make the centre feel safe. I think there's a lot of the economy that it's not being accessed because it doesn't feel safe. And like Andy was saying, doesn't know where to take clients, and do you then go to Bawtry and all the revenue's going into Bawtry because you're safe there and it's nice. And I'm Doncaster born and bred, but don't live in Doncaster anymore because I didn't want to raise my son in Doncaster, which is really sad. My business is in Doncaster, I'm working with Doncaster young people, but as a family and as a mum, I don't want him to be in Doncaster because I don't feel safe. I don't go into the town centre with my own son because I, as a female, feel unsafe, and I wouldn't take my child with me. So I think it's not particularly relating to the college and the industry I work in, but I think then our young people would spend more time at town centre, because my students, I don't know if John has the same feedback, because they're more vulnerable young people, they don't go into the town centre because they don't feel safe. They might go to the Dome and to the Hurton Triangle because it's more open and there's no dark corners where I think it's that, and then it would regenerate the centre. And as Karen was saying, making that centre better, and things that Chinwe is doing, it's making it safe. I think that's quite a big ask, and there's a lot to make things safe. But then it would allow Robbo to take clients, and all those things that then kind of you start moving forward.
Thank you.
For me, the sort of centre of everything is the creation of prosperity. For Doncaster to succeed, for small business to become big businesses, you need opportunity. For art to flourish, you need to have people who are prepared to spend money on arts. So you need to create prosperity, and that is for the local authority. I don't have much faith in government, any colour. I just don't believe they deliver much for us. They spend so much time. Somebody mentioned in the thing about bureaucracy. We waste so much time on bureaucracy. Create an environment, attract businesses in. We've now got hybrid air vehicles. Open the doors, whatever that looks like. I'm not sure what regulations, I'm not sure what the rateable structures are. Remove them, simplify it, get businesses in, create business incubation. There's no business incubation opportunity or space in Doncaster.
Games Hub.
There's no incubation.
Yeah, right.
So for me, it's all about focusing on businesses, letting businesses flourish, and then everybody will succeed, because the rates and the taxation that the local authority will get from that investment will make this a much better place.
Thank you, sir.
I'm opportunity, give people more opportunity, younger people, aspire them, give them more opportunity, and I think a lot more financial support from the council. For me, you don't get anything, and you never quite had the right things to get that funding or that funding or that funding. But actually, we've got 10 million that we've got to spend by this time, and actually, if you don't, it's going to go anyway. It's like you'd never have access to it, to the council. We know that.
Yeah,
for
we've
years.
never ever ticked, and I was going to say
And
exactly
so
the
many
same point, we've
businesses,
never
like
ticked the boxes.
startups, or
Never.
if you're, if
No.
you're a sole trader or whatever, if you are a startup, not even if you're a startup, even if you are a bigger company or a large company, why should you still not have access to funding that's there from the council? It doesn't matter, right? Just because you're successful when you're 5 million or 10 million or a billion, why could you not still have access to some funding? So I think helping businesses with the funding, more opportunity for people, creating a hybrid, a games hub in Donny, that'd be so cool. Sheffield hasn't got it.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Manchester, but Sheffield doesn't have sumo games there. They're creating a games hub here, building games companies. You got the people there. They're at the college.
Yeah.
They're sitting there now. They're doing their 2-3 years. So they're building that. That makes it cool and trendy as well, right? And the creative arts, you get artists. It all rolls into one. So
Nibs, you got any? I don't want to.
No, I was just
Yeah.
touch on the same point. To be honest, it's just no offence to the council or anything.
No.
But we had Damo from the council come. The CEO of the council, and he
said the same.
He said exactly the same. He said, "Well, have we helped you at all?" And we're like, "No. They were, how have you created this?" Because a lot of people that set up businesses, go to the council with this, we could do this, and we could do this for the town, the city, right? This is what we could bring to the city. Can we have some money to do that? He was like, well, you've already done it, and you're already bringing that prosperity and bringing opportunity to the city, and we helped you. And he was like, no, we've done it all ourselves, and we haven't asked for anything. And it's not like we wanted to ask for anything. We were going to do it ourselves anyway. But just for other businesses, like Andy said, to come in, like newer businesses, just to give them a little bit of a teaser,
Seed funding,
something, you just kind of will
rent, no business rates. You could do lots of things, right?
because we know certain
Help
businesses
people.
don't have help with rent in the city, but it's like, they employ maybe 12 people. Not that it matters who you employ, how many, the number one or
100,
whatever
don't
might be, but, it's kind of like, how does that look like for other businesses as well, It's an enticement, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like...
I don't even know where to stand because there's so many things that need to change. There's so many things that need to change. I would like to see a real commitment from the council about making change. We talk a lot, over the years about the same thing, but I need to see a real commitment, not just having a meeting and ticking a box. A real commitment from the council about making a change in Doncaster and for them to put the necessary plans into action to make it happen. I would like to see more businesses created because for me to flourish, for my industry to flourish, we need an economy that is successful already. And then we need people who have the buying power to go to art galleries or buy art. So there's a lot of things that need to happen for us as an industry to flourish, and it starts from the creation of wealth, which Andy mentions, and which means empowering more people, whether through re-education, whether through skill acquisition, for them to set up their own businesses, become independent, and then have the resources that they need to come out and buy my art, and we all live a good life. So there's so much that needs to be done that and we need to put some kind of focus on the city centre. It's really, for me, it is key to the development of the rebranding we're talking about. We need to put a focus on the city centre so that it'll be a lot more attractive to people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, okay. I mean, where I'm at is I'm committed, and I will do everything I can to, if you like, close that gap between learning and work. I think that's been a theme across a lot of the things we've talked about, and that is absolutely kind of at the centre of the kind of current and future ambition for the college. And our future strategy and plan and vision is going to be built around that premise that we close that gap. And that's me moving to the college closer towards kind of the working reality. I need people and the employment context to not even come halfway, but come some other way, so that actually that gap gets closed more effectively and more quickly. Yeah. There's a huge amount to build on. We've got fantastic relationships with literally hundreds and hundreds of Doncaster employers, and I'd say almost all of our students, not 100% yet, but we'll get there. But almost all of our students do have meaningful you know, kind of experience of work, exposure to work through placements and other. It's not actually that common in a large general education college. So we're starting from a good place, but I guess it's kind of come towards us, and we will absolutely kind of run towards you. And then the other ask I would have is my campaign to not characterise those essential skills as soft skills. They're not soft. You know, we've proved that, I think, in this conversation. It's the other stuff that really matters, and therefore we should elevate and sort of enhance and put greater status and priority on those other things that we sometimes, I think, just because the language around them is kind of well used around soft skills. So that's my ask, is let's not call them soft skills, let's call them something else, essential, critical, whatever. I think because that does them much more justice.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Karen?
I think I'm going to build on what Andy and Chinwe have said. For us to be successful in Doncaster, we've got to have a prosperous economy, which is built on good quality business, whether that's small businesses that we can create an environment where new businesses come digital, linked to the hybrid air vehicles. We can't just be a logistics company, warehousing city. That is the road to nowhere for me. So I think to do that, we need to be bold and ambitious, but we also need to keep it simple. You know, don't overcomplicate things. Give it and do something, because we're all fed up of waiting for the city centre to look different. We're all fed up of talking about things. We want to see some action, I think is my ask, really. But don't be afraid to ask back of business and educational establishments, because I think you will get more support than you expect.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are concluding. Mitch, have you got any final reflections that you'd like to share?
No, I'd say again, thank you for everyone's time. I mean, that's absolutely fascinating. So I've been typing down notes and stuff, and kind of it's really helped, you know, I've got loads of thoughts in my head. I suppose for me, it's just like, you know, obviously everyone already doing this, that continuation of fantastic work people do, and that collaboration, which I think, for me, I think that's what makes Doncaster unique, actually, that kind of, you know, wider Team Doncaster partnership, trying to create some of that change and kind of continuation of that. But no, for me, just generally, and obviously thanks to Kurt as well for and the team as well, recording, for putting this together.
Thank you very much. So it leaves it with me just to conclude then. So thank you very much for your openness, your candidness, and the sharing that's gone on. At the very least, I hope that you've gained something from listening to each other's stories. And at the very least as well, like Karen says, we don't just have to leave here going, that was a nice chat. We can actually take personal action. So I will continue to champion the small business and the sole trader, and hope more opportunities occur for that. And I hope you all take your own one action thing that you can do for your sector or for the people that will serve your sector in terms of sort of growing through their own kind of like career paths, whether it be the same one for 5 years or 20 years or shifts and chains. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you for the invite.
Cheers, Kurt.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you.